give us a little bit more details about what the trust equation is, how it works, and how we can actually use it as entrepreneurs every day.
Yes, indeed. That trust equation is something that really blew my mind when I discovered it. I'm drawing inspiration, I don't have any credit for it. The guy who came up with it is called David Maister. He's a former Harvard Business School professor. And he wrote a book called The Trusted Advisor, whom I would really advise you to actually have a look at. Anyway, the trust equation is made of 4 major ingredients. Some of them we are kind of familiar with, some of them we are less familiar. So let me tell you the 4 ingredients. One is credibility. That one is pretty obvious. It's about, you know your stuff, and you also know when you don't know. The second one is reliability. So not only you know your stuff, so you are credible, but you also deliver what you said you would do. And also on the more softer side, you are here for the person in front of you when they need you. Okay, so you are reliable. The third one is about, and this is one that really opened my mind, is intimacy. Intimacy, not intimacy in a way that you start to understand what the person is doing on the weekend and the name of the dog and his wife and his kids, but intimacy in the sense that the person in front of you becomes comfortable to talk about sensitive topics, and you talk about sensitive topics with each other, and there is no barrier to do that. So and this is a major component which is usually forgotten by a lot of people because they just don't want to go there. And this is all about emotional connection. Okay, so credibility and reliability is much more about the rational side of things. But we all know that we don't impact people. People don't remember you because of the rational side of things. People remind of you because of the emotions, because of the impressions that you left them. So intimacy is critical, and this is, I believe, a key differentiating factor that people can bring into that equation. So again, the equation is, let me repeat, the 3, it's actually a fraction. So on the top of it is credibility plus reliability plus intimacy. Those 3 factors contribute largely to building trust. The last parameter or criteria, if you want, that builds or destroy trust is on the bottom of the fraction, and that's called self-orientation. And what this is about is it about you or is it about me? Because if it's, if it might change, it's all about me. If I want to appear smart, if I want to sell my product to you, if I want to demonstrate how great I am, this is not going to work. This is not going to build trust. I have to make it about you. Right or wrong?
Absolutely.
So that's the self-orientation bit, and there are lots of behaviors that tend to appear self-orientated or orientated towards the other person.
Yep.
That's what we are trying to identify and clarify.
Excellent. Thank you, Christophe, for that. So one question is, when you don't know someone, right? You just met someone in maybe a conference. So the credibility, the reliability, you exchange your business card, you explain, what you've done and so on. But then what would be a good advice basically to build that intimacy side in this discussion? How do you become intimate?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions about trust is that it takes time. It takes time to build trust. And, guess what? I mean, yes, it does. Who can argue with that? At the same time, I would argue that you can build trust much quicker than most people think.
Interesting.
So the idea is to break this idea that you would need X number of months or X number of meetings to build that trust. Because why is that? Very often you meet one person once or twice. Decisions are being made. Impressions are being made. You don't have opportunities to build trust over time those days. Okay? So my advice is, first of all, to work on your mindset and to break this conception, this belief, self-limiting belief actually, that trust has to be built over time. Trust can be built in a matter of minutes.
Okay.
Provided that you ask the right questions and you just go there directly and you just address the topic and you talk to the person in a very honest and direct way.
Okay, interesting. So maybe would you have an example? Could we have, imagine sort of a business setting in a conference, an entrepreneur meeting a potential strategic partner, and then they exchange, they explain, you know, what they do, each of them, and how can that entrepreneur quickly build more trust? What would be examples?
Okay, so yeah, let me give you an example. Very often entrepreneurs face a situation where they have some blind spots. They have actually, I would not even call it blind spots because sometimes they are aware of them. They are aware that either one part of their technology or one part of their market survey or one part of their team maybe is not completely on par with what we could expect. And usually they know it. The tendency sometimes is to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to concentrate on my strengths and ignore those aspects, hoping that the person in front of me will not see it. Now, my advice in those situations is that, number one, when there is a blind spot and when you want to hide it, 9 chances out of 10, people will discover it before you tell them. People feel that. And you have professionals in front of you. They smell. They are being paid to smell those things. So my advice is, right from the start, put that on the table in a very confident way. So let me give you an example. You know, you are a little bit weak or you're not completely sure about one part of your technology. It's not completely tested or it's not, you know, completely well-rounded. Say to the person in front of you, you say, you know what? My technology relies on 3 major components. 2 of them we master completely. There is one though that we are still testing, and you know what? We are still not happy about it. And we haven't had the opportunity to complete the design of that technology. We are on top of things. We know what's missing.
Excellent, excellent. So this boils down to, you know, being honest and somewhat being okay with having some level of vulnerability.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another thing is just to get curious about the person you have in front of you. And if you know they have topics, you know, hot topics they want to talk about, just talk about them, address them, ask questions to them. The key here to build intimacy is to get curious about the other person. If you know there are something that they are really interested in, or if they know there's something is sensitive to them, talk about that and be prepared to open the conversation. If you know there are sensitive topics on your side, be open to open the conversation as well.
Excellent. So how do you find actually those, you know, hot topics or, you know, topics that people like talking about? Is throughout the conversation, but is there any leading questions to sort of, you know, find, or you do a bit of research before? So what would be an advice for an entrepreneur to find these elements?
Okay, that's actually a great question as well. You know what? Rather than 20 or 30 years ago, my answer to that question would have been yes. Prepare the best you can and be ready to figure out what can be interesting for the other person, etc. And that remains true somehow. But now my mind has shifted completely. Rather than trying to guess those topics, just ask the other person in a very open-ended way.
Okay.
Meaning, let me give you an example. Maister, you know, when you talk to me, let me ask you one thing. What is truly in your mind? What is really important for you at this point of time? You know, if you were a partner or an investor, whatever, let me ask you a completely open-ended question. It's not a leading question. I don't know what you're going to answer, but I'm open for you to tell me anything that's in your mind that is really important.
Excellent. So open-ended question would be the best way actually to find those hot
Absolutely.
topics. Excellent. That's very useful. Thank you. So what I found very interesting with the trust equation that you passed on to me is basically it can be used in marketing also. So when you create messaging on a website or a PowerPoint, or even when you lead a conversation in a sales environment. So often a lot of entrepreneurs in their marketing will talk about the great technologies, the great features, and they're not going to put that level of intimacy in the messaging, talking about the hidden emotions of customers, right? The emotions, what they feel about a certain situation, a certain an example would be if let's say a website that sells homes, right? So buying a new home, is quite stressful. There's some anxiety. Will I get screwed? Will I, how does it work? It can be overwhelming. So the more these companies are able to put these intimate emotions on their sites, the more they build trust. Also, with the clients reading these things. So would you say the trust equation can actually be used in marketing?
It's a good point. To be honest, Alistair, I didn't really think of it that way. The way this trust equation, but I mean, it's a very interesting angle. Honestly, I would have to reflect on that. Now, to be honest, this trust equation is mostly there and made for interaction and communication.
Okay.
Building trust not only face to face, but through communication, through conversation, let's say. Mm-hmm. That being said, your point, you're making a good point. I mean, why not including those four components in any communication you have, including written? That's a wonderful point. I mean, that's something to explore.
Good, thank you. So this is great, Christophe. The trust equation, indeed is one of these elements that we also pass on to our teams with who we work. And then the second topic, I think we've covered nicely the trust equation now. So the second topic is the high status behaviors.